kind of turned me on when I heard that the president gets angry and volatile. I'm not going to lie.
President Joe Biden is an angry man, and Fox News is turned on. So I'm going to get to that clip from Fox News later on in this video. But I want to explore this new report that is out in from Axios about Biden's fury. So this is their headline for this story. Old Yeller, Biden's private fury. Now, I'm going to get to more details in a bit here. Just a couple of quotes, just to give you an idea of how this article is largely framed. Being yelled at by the president has become an internal initiation ceremony in this White House, aides say. If Biden doesn't yell at you, it could be a sign he doesn't respect you. Here's another example, or paragraph here. Some Biden aides argue that the president's rages reflect his high expectations for his staff. So this article largely frames Biden's anger as mostly behind closed doors at staff because he wants them to do better and he has high expectations of them. I want to show you how media generally treated Marianne Williamson 3 months ago. So this is a headline from The Guardian. Candidate Marianne Williamson hit by claims of foaming, spitting rage. Ex-staffers of self-help authors seeking Democratic nomination report uncontrollable fury. Uncontrollable fury at odds with message of love. So, which is amazing as well, because this article goes into how Biden is actually very compassionate and that works in conjunction with his anger at his staff. Meanwhile, here, it's at odds with Williamson's message of love. Now, this isn't any sort of, support here for Marianne Williamson's run in the primary. Again, I've discussed her run in the past, the positives and negatives, the obvious barriers. But regardless of all of that, just look at how different it is when a woman in a position of power, like Marianne Williamson, does the exact same thing Biden does, and the difference in how the media frames it. Now, look, of course, I'm sure there are some specifics that maybe are different. Maybe some stories are worse than others. Of course, there's nuance there. But just generally describing Marianne Williamson as someone who, and this article is largely about Williamson yelling at staff, much as this one about Biden is, and just having the completely different frame because one is this man of respect. Look at the sunglasses with the fire in them. Like, this is all framed as like, oh, look at this badass Joe Biden. Meanwhile, here it's like oh, look at this crazy woman yelling at her staff. She's uncontrollable. It's wild. Now, I want to show you, look, I'm going to get to maybe where Biden should be directing his anger. But before I get there, some more specifics here. So behind closed doors, Biden has such a quick trigger temper that some mates try to avoid meeting alone with him. Some take a colleague almost as a shield against a solo blast. The president's admonitions include, quote, "God damn it, how the F don't you know this? Don't effing bullshit me, and get the F out of here," according to current and former Biden aides who have witnessed and been on the receiving end of such outbursts. Yet still, they go on to describe, as I showed you, that this is actually a good thing. Now, I want to show you how Fox News reacted to this, because I was looking for more reactions online from conservative media because I was curious how they would be discussing this, and largely they're ignoring it. I'm not going to get to why I think that after this clip. This is going to be Kennedy, Fox News' Kennedy here, reacting to this report.
He's really not Amtrak Joe. And I think Emily points out a really important difference. It's like swearing at people. It's a quirk. Kind of turned me on when I heard that the president gets angry and volatile. I'm not going to lie. I'm disappointed in just about every single thing he has done as president. I think he's just, the economy is wobbling at best. That's a kind way of putting it.
So, according to a Fox News host, Biden yelling at staff is a turn on. Which goes to why I don't think we're going to see a lot of reporting from conservative media covering this. At least as of recording this is the only clip so far that I could find about this from conservative media. Because they think this makes Biden look good. It makes him appear more alert, more engaged in the actual issues, more willing to get things done if he's, behind closed doors yelling at his staff to get stuff done. That makes him look good. And look, I could see their argument. I think a lot of people will think this makes Biden look better. It's worth analyzing why we as a society and media and just generally, why we have this different inherent reaction to Biden yelling at staffers compared to someone like Marianne Williamson yelling at staffers. It's worth thinking about that. Now, I want to get to more details here, including some specifics around what he's been yelling about, because I want to get some feedback here in the comments. What your thoughts are on this, like in terms of Biden yelling at a staff, if you think this is productive or not. So a couple examples they use here in the piece. Biden's aides still talk about how angry he got at Jeff Zients, the administration's COVID czar, in late 2021 when there was a shortage of testing kits as the Omicron variant spread. The rage was temporary. Zients is now Biden's chief of staff. Whipple's book quotes former White House press secretary Jen Psaki as saying, quote, "I said to Biden multiple times, I'll know we have a really good, trusting relationship when you yell at me the first time." Whipple notes Psaki wouldn't have to wait long. Jen Psaki here, like welcoming the anger, welcoming the fury from Joe Biden. Again, just picture anyone who's not a man in this position. And I just think the reporting would be a lot different. And the reactions from people there also would likely be a lot different. But it's apparently helped some of his staff. They think it's an initiation. They see it as largely a positive thing. I do wonder if there are people on staff there that are bothered by this, where it's actually impacted them, but they're afraid to speak out because the staff as a whole don't see it as a big deal. So they're less likely to speak out about it. Or maybe it just really isn't that big of a deal. They see him as some old cranky man, and he has a reason to be angry about certain things, and they just deal with it. It's hard to know, but I am curious what people's thoughts are about this. That said, there is a place where he should be directing his anger, and I'm going to get to that. This goes into it. Some Biden aides think the president would be better off occasionally displaying his temper in public as a way to assuage voter concerns. The 80-year-old president is disengaged and too old for the office. I completely agree. Now, there have been moments where Biden has, raised his voice in a speech, and I think those are often the best moments in those speeches. He needs to do more of that. I think it would help, just politically, I think it would help him to appear more engaged, someone that is actually passionate, cares. Whether or not he actually cares or is passionate, I guess, is another story. So would his yelling actually be effective if it comes off as performance as opposed to him actually being, as opposed to actually being authentic? I think that is, obviously a risk there. Because if you don't actually care about the issue, then you're just pretending to get angry about it. That can come off as pretty phony. But on that point, I covered last week, or I should say 9 days ago, as it writes here, when Biden made his announcement following the student debt decision by the Supreme Court. So I want to show you some clips from my video here, including Biden's speech, just at how different he is publicly compared to privately.
I believe the court's decision to strike down my student debt relief program was a mistake, was wrong. So we need to find a new way. And we're moving as fast as we can.
The man's asleep. I watched this entire announcement, and he is not ready for a campaign. All right, so those are some of my thoughts on Biden's speech there, and this is how he is generally in these speeches. This was a major Supreme Court decision that blocked one of his key campaign proposals, canceling some student loan debt, and he is sleepwalking through that discussion. It's almost hard for me to picture him being this person they describe him as in that Axios piece, as yelling behind the scenes, assertive. They even get to a lot of what it's about. Like, he really gets specific on certain issues, and he really tries to question his aides to see if they know the answer to certain things. And he's really he's in the details, in the weeds. This doesn't seem like the same guy we see publicly. He really, if he wants to help himself, his own numbers, he should maybe show some actual passion publicly as well, not just behind closed doors. But this also goes to, it isn't just about performance passion, it's about actually getting the job done, doing something about it. Common Dreams has a great piece here that came out just yesterday. Biden failing to harness justified anger. This was before the anger piece in Axios, so they knew there was some potential there for Biden's anger. justified anger over Supreme Court's anti-democratic corruption. Given the Supreme Court's recent track record and its virtually unchecked power, inaction is no longer acceptable. So it's a longer piece, but just the quick summary here. They go over some of the crazy decisions in rapid succession. It ended affirmative action in college admissions, overturned President Biden's student debt forgiveness program, and held that an evangelical Christian graphic designer has a First Amendment right to refuse to create websites for same-sex weddings. Biden reacted quickly, issuing separate statements on each of the decisions. He condemned them as wrongly decided, painful and disappointing, and promised to develop strategies to counter their impacts. But he stopped short of backing the only reform that can reverse the Supreme Court's extreme rightward turn, expanding the court and filling the new seats with liberal jurists if he is reelected and the Democrats galvanize their base to retake both houses of Congress in 2024. All this behind the scenes passion, all this anger, all this yelling means nothing if you aren't willing to actually fight for some real changes. So you can be as passionate as you want behind the scenes. You could even think it's a good thing that he is this passionate, this angry behind closed doors. But if he's not willing to take the actual steps, like expanding the court to solve some of these problems, then none of it matters. Couple last things here. Another example of this is just crap like this. So this is a Biden tweet from today, I believe. Oh, July 8th, so a few days ago. But he says, every American willing to work hard should be able to get a good job and afford good health care, no matter where they live. That's the American dream. That's Bidenomics. Which is just, I hope he doesn't use this too often. That's terrible. But the point I want to focus on here is everyone willing to work hard should be able to afford good health care. Yet, this tweet from the day before, July 7th, on my watch, healthcare is a right, not a privilege in this country. And you see here that Twitter, to their credit, not to Elon's credit, to Twitter generally, they had this before Elon came on board. This is some context here, correcting Joe Biden on this misinformation. So Joe Biden has never publicly supported universal health care or Medicare for all, and said he would veto bills that implement such a system. So Biden is not for universal health care, even though here on the 7th he pretends to be. But he contradicts himself the next day by saying, well, if you work hard, then you should be able to afford health care, which makes it not a right. This goes to the complete empty performance that is a lot of what Joe Biden does. All this potential passion, anger that he has or does have behind the scenes and could be used publicly doesn't mean anything unless you're actually willing to fight for some real change.